Throughout the history of Nickelodeon shows, there have been an endless amount of hidden gem characters that truly went underutilized. Characters that would be forced to the sidelines, destined for not much more than comedic relief, side plots off of side plots, and being the low-hanging fruit means to wrap up the story. And if we're being honest, some of them deserved it. It's kind of like a spectrum. On one side, we have characters like Crazy Steve from Drake and Josh, a funny side character who had some pretty good moments. However, he absolutely didn't need his own spin-off show or even his own episode. That probably would have been a bit much. That character kind of deserved to play the comedic relief and not much more, and I think that I speak for most fans of the show when I say that we were totally okay with that. In the middle of this spectrum, we have characters like Sheen from Jimmy Neutron, who lives as proof of when a side character doesn't need to be forced into the spotlight. We're looking at you, Planet Sheen. Like, when we were kids, the random, zany humor was appealing, so having a character like Sheen get his own show sounded like it could have been an okay thing. But ultimately it was awful, and a lot of us realized that we were actually pretty happy with Sheen just playing that side character role. On our spectrum, he lives in that central, neutral spot of having interesting potential, but ultimately just working better as a side character. However, on the clear other side, we have none other than Gaz Membrane. A side character who is literally so golden, so OP, and so much more competent than the actual main characters that you can't help but wonder, why isn't this show about her? Why isn't she the one who takes the helm in fighting Zim? Of course, there are literal answers to those questions, but from a soaking up the narrative standpoint, it's truly remarkable to take in how likely the most interesting and intimidating character in the entire series was kind of banished to side plots and quick gags. Sure, we would have a one-off Gaz episode every once in a while, but when you consider the fact that her skills and personality could have completely turned the tides of this show, changing the entire dynamic if the writers really wanted to, it's actually pretty ironic. With that being said though, Invader Zim is a show that came out during a really weird time for cartoons. In the early 2000s, the entire landscape of animation was shifting. Along with it came a wave of a lot more dark and gritty cartoons. The king of which, though, would absolutely be Invader Zim. Not only did it boast a shadow-heavy, gruesome art style, it was also shrouded in controversy just as dark, having multiple episodes almost banned after 9/11, being critiqued by the now-defunct magazine Christian Parenting Today, and even being cited as the inspiration in an absolutely horrific murder trial. I actually made a video about that last one too. I'll have it linked in the description down below if you want to check it out. If you're here and you clicked on this video, you're probably already familiar with the show, but just in case you aren't, Invader Zim is an absolute staple of early 2000s Nickelodeon. It's centered around Zim, who is an incompetent yet megalomaniacal alien invader who is completely unaware that he's the outcast of his species and was sent to take over Earth as a joke, and to keep him occupied so he doesn't mess up their actual plans. Thankfully, his overlords issued him a robot named Gur, who is absolutely rambunctious and has a tendency to malfunction, to assist with his mission and keep him company. As Zim observes the Earthlings and plots their downfall, hot on his tail is none other than Dib Membrane. Dib is a surprisingly intelligent and competent kid who is obsessed with all things paranormal. He's usually one of the only people who sees right through all of Zim's disguises and plots. Having dubbed himself the savior of the Earth, he'll stop at nothing to expose Zim's secret and thwart his plans. Sadly for him though, not a single person believes him. Pretty much everybody around him thinks that he's crazy, leaving him usually flying solo and trying to stop Zim. Dib is essentially the only one who knows that the Earth is under attack, and as a result, he's taken the responsibility of single-handedly stopping Zim onto his shoulders personally. The only other person who knows the truth is Dib's little sister, Gaz. The thing is, though, she does not care for even a second. She sees right through Zim's plans and realizes that he is completely incompetent. She doesn't see it worth the time to try and interfere because she knows good and well that Zim's plans for domination aren't going anywhere. The true irony, however, lies within the fact that Gaz is infinitely stronger and more dangerous than her brother. She could easily take Zim out, but she doesn't. On one hand, this little girl at her core is nihilistic, cynical, and short-fused. She hates mankind and sees very little value in it as a whole. On the other hand, she knows that Zim couldn't even conquer his classroom, let alone the world. With that being said, it's one of those where she can choose not to act because even if he did find the means to dominate the world, she wouldn't care anyways. On top of all that, she shows nothing but hatred and abuse towards her brother. She gets joy out of seeing him struggle. It's not hard to imagine that she would be happy knowing that Dib is constantly fighting this losing battle that he takes way too seriously, sacrificing his own sanity as he dwells on the thought of Zim constantly closing in on his ultimate goal. Too swept up in his paranoia to realize that Zim isn't as big of a threat as he thinks he is. I mean, Gaz doesn't even know that Zim was sent here as a joke, but she can definitely smell his incompetence from a mile away regardless. When we zoom out and look at the big picture, though, it's truly remarkable to take in the fact that not only was Gaz tossed to the sidelines and never really given the spotlight all too often, plus if she had been Zim's arch-nemesis instead of Dib, the tides would have changed drastically, but also that there was once plans to do so much more with her as a character. Originally, the idea was to have her be an ally to Zim in his conquest of world domination. She was going to be a bit older and potentially in a relationship with him. That concept, which certainly would have tossed her more towards the forefront of the show, was ultimately scrapped, however. And just like that, Gaz would fade more towards the background, keeping to herself, hating everyone, and prioritizing pizza and video games above all else. Utilized for nothing more than random gags or an occasional one-off episode. In my opinion, they fumbled hardcore with this one. Gaz is a character that just had endless potential, especially in a show with this particular flavor of unique. Invader Zim is a show that kind of stands on its own, especially in the world of Nickelodeon. There weren't any other shows like it, and to be honest, there weren't very many characters like Gaz. I mean, Megan from Drake and Josh would kind of fly close, as would Sam from Sam and Cat, but ultimately, those Spitfire characters never really had that deep, dark, morbid nature that we would get from Gaz. And that's why today, on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're going to check out a few episodes of Invader Zim that truly showcase how much of an underutilized gem of a character that Gaz Membrane truly is. We're going to be starting off with a very iconic early episode that really showed us a lot about Gaz and brought out some of her best strengths. One that truly emphasizes what makes Gaz, Gaz. Of course, we're diving into none other than the Season 1 episode, Bloaties Pizza Hog. As this episode starts out, we see Dib suiting up in preparation to sneak into Zim's house and make his way deep into the hidden lair underneath.
And once I get in there, am I gonna do something.
I'm trying to draw a little piggy. Can't you see I'm trying to draw a little piggy? Be quiet.
Don't you care that Zim's trying to destroy all mankind? Huh?
But he's so bad at it.
You just don't get it.
As Dib walks away, a little robot screen flies up with their father, the scientist, on a video call. He tells Gaz that it's the annual family night out and that it's her turn to pick where they're eating. At that, we see her eyes turn into swirling spirals as she enters a hypnotic state, mind set on nothing but Bloaties Pizza Hog, saying that the pig commands her. Dad says he'll be home at 8, and just like that, Dib starts to head off for Zim's house. Gaz tells him that they're going to Bloaties tonight, but Dib says that this is far more important. This is the fate of mankind.
You and your mankind.
Whatever. Look, if I'm not home in time, call this number and tell them the Mothman is caught in the spider's web. They'll know what you mean.
As the hours pass and their dad shows up without Dib being home yet, Gaz eats the card that he gave her with the number to call for help, preparing to leave without him. To her misfortune though, her dad refuses to go without Dib, saying that this is family night and that it wouldn't be right to go without him. And to make matters worse, he says that if Dib doesn't make it, they're gonna have to reschedule for next year.
What about the rest of this year?
Well... Simmons, how does my schedule look for the rest of this year?
Busy, sir. Very busy. Wait! Something just opened up for September. Oh, scratch that. It just filled up.
No good, honey. It has to be today. And I've got a cure to discover at 9:30. So if he's not home soon, we're going to have to cancel the whole thing.
A little while later, Dib ends up radioing Gaz on her watch to tell her that he made it inside of Zim's underground lair. She tells him angrily to come home right now, but at that moment, Zim ends up attacking and she loses contact with her brother. At that, she angrily suits up and heads for Zim's house so she can get Dib and, more importantly, her pizza. She approaches the house and a robotic mother figure answers the door. With little more than a mild shove, though, she's knocked an eyeball out of the cheaply made robot, forcing her way into the house that Gurr is supposed to be guarding. Instead, though, he's just watching TV. On the TV is an ad for none other than Bloaties Pizza Hog.
Come to Bloaties Pizza Hog!
I love you, kid.
As Gaz's stomach growls, she angrily asks Gurr where Dib is, and though he's on defense at first with weapons drawn, all it takes is some persistent demanding for him to happily take her to Zim's lair with a smile on his face. Gurr ends up leading her to a teleporter, not even really confident that that's the exact one that Zim and Dib went through. But regardless, Gaz steps right into it, being zapped to a spaceship hovering outside of the Earth's atmosphere. As she looks around, she hears Zim laughing maniacally in the distance. She follows the sound of his cackling, and she stumbles upon her brother caught in a vat of fluid, being held captive by Zim, who's planning on experimenting on him.
Just one experiment. Then I go rescue him.
Now, Dib, let's see what you look like with all your organs. On the outside! On the outside! Get it? The outside!
Okay, Dad, we can go to Bloaties now.
We can't go anywhere with him like that. Family night is canceled until his organs are inside him again.
Thankfully, that's just Gaz's imagination, as we cut back to real time where she decides to interfere in Zim's plan. As she hops down, Zim mocks her, saying that Dib's little sister of all people has no chance of breaking him free from that chamber that Zim designed himself.
I would destroy you right now if I didn't expect to get so much amusement from watching you try to get him out.
Dib thanks Gaz for saving him, saying that it's now or never and that they need to destroy Zim while they can. But Gaz is just having none of it. She straps her brother to a stretcher and ends up wheeling him back to the teleporters to force him to give it up and just go have some pizza with her and their dad. They're both completely shocked, however, when they see that Zim has cut the power to the teleporters, leaving them seemingly stranded out here in space.
Stupid, stinking humans. Doesn't this station have escape pods?
Of course, they're right over there.
Stupid, stupid.
Come on, Gaz! You sacrificed the entire planet just for some pizza? Why can't you just go tomorrow?
You just don't get it, do you?
Zim ends up hot on their tail in another one of the escape pods as they find themselves in a high-speed chase being blasted by him. Gaz, though, seems to handle this spacecraft with extremely high-level precision, even being able to call her dad with the onboard video communicator to tell him to meet them at Bloaties. Zim ends up on the extreme offensive, attacking Gaz's escape pod aggressively, but in the end she ends up escaping his clutches and sending him colliding with a satellite. Meanwhile, her and Dib prepare for a crash landing at Bloaties.
I eat too many pizza.
All of a sudden, their escape pod goes flying through the wall and bounces right off of Bloaties' gut, leaving them safe after a rather cushy landing. As Dib continues to plead with Gaz, begging her to go back and fight Zim with him, she wheels him out to a table where they sit with their dad to have some pizza. Zim ends up walking into the restaurant and preparing to do away with him once and for all.
What form of earth monsters are these?
With Zim now out of the picture without them even really having to do anything, Gaz tells Dib that he won, throwing some pizza in his face as the episode comes to an end. Now, there's an awful lot to say about this episode. There's many layers of Gaz for us to pick apart here. However, before I get into that, really quickly, I just want to thank you so much for clicking on this video. You being here really means a lot to me, and I hope you're enjoying the video. If you are, do me a huge solid and drop a like, let me know what you think down in the comments below, and maybe consider purchasing a super thanks or a membership if you want to show some extra support. I couldn't do this without you guys, and every single membership and super thanks, even you just being here watching this video, helps me so much. Again, thank you for being here, and I hope you have an awesome day. Let's get right back into it. Oh man, so this episode, in my opinion, is such an excellent one to serve as an introduction to her as a character to those that aren't too familiar. This one shows so many of her greatest traits on full display, and some deeper, more nuanced parts of her character that even long-term fans may have overlooked as well. First of all, starting a little more broadly, it needs to be pointed out that Gaz is a character who, in general, isn't really fazed by things that would normally worry most people. She's kind of unshakable to a degree. She always tends to maintain a relatively subdued and highly controlled sense of emotion. She's never really one to panic even in the face of alien invaders, her brother being kidnapped, or being sent to space. In the face of Dib's absolute desperation, panic, and constant elevated demeanor, she's always strikingly calm, except for in those few brief seconds where her anger tends to boil over and you see her twitch a little bit and go kind of wide-eyed. Given the stakes of everything that happens in this show and how bizarre in general that the tone is, that says a lot to her resiliency. On top of that though, this episode also showed us how single-minded that she can be when she's dead set on something that she wants. In this episode, that one thing was pizza. Her one and only goal was making it to Bloaties for some pizza, and she wasn't for a second willing to deviate from that plan. The entire world could collapse before her very eyes, and she still would refuse to lose sight of her mission. On one hand, that shows a great deal of tenacity as far as her character is concerned, but on top of that, it shows almost alarming levels of willpower and discipline. Sure, the obvious brainwashing and hypnosis at play on behalf of Bloaties Pizza Hog could have an effect as well, but in general, that honed-in focus is pretty standard for her character, and this episode shows it in a very in-your-face manner. Literally, the entire story here was her going through whatever she needed to and jumping through whatever hoops she had to in order to get to Bloaties. I mean, Dib even has a squad of people ready at the ring of a phone to come and save him. However, Gaz takes it upon herself to do all of the saving, likely feeling as if anyone else that Dib could involve would probably just slow her down and complicate things. I mean, it's really interesting to take in that Gaz as a character exudes an alarming level of confidence. However, it's completely justified. She's the kind of person who literally can go into a situation like this single-handed, and she's way better off than she would have been with help. With that in mind though, it's also a very interesting clash when we consider Gaz's competence to Dib's severe incompetence. I mean, in the latter half of this episode, he's just constantly losing his mind. She literally has to strap him down to get him to just stop and enjoy some family time. On the whole, he just gets himself into increasingly more ridiculous situations like we saw in this one, and she just remains calm and collected as normal. In this episode, literally, she just walks in and barely lifts a finger, and next thing you know, Dib is free and they're on their way out while Zim is still laughing at how dumb they are. Like, on one hand, this right here does serve to point out a few of Zim's fatal flaws. However, the stark contrast between her and her brother really does show that she'd be far more efficient at putting an end to Zim's plots if she actually felt like doing so. On top of the simple, straightforward character points, this one truly showed a lot about Gaz's interesting manipulation tactics. We saw this shine through a few times in rather subtle ways. Specifically, this came through in the way that she gets exactly what she wants by applying psychological and sometimes a little bit of physical pressure in a very strategic way. She knows exactly what to do or say in order to get her way, and she does so with surgical precision. She understands how people think and what they fear, and she isn't afraid to utilize that to gain control over someone or an entire situation. When Gaz delivers threats or makes intimidating statements, she doesn't do so hastily or in an elevated manner. She doesn't usually yell or make threatening gestures. She delivers her threats calmly, which, coming from her specifically, is far more unsettling. It's what separates a general, untargeted, screaming, rip-your-face-off, easily predictable younger sister like Sarah from Ed, Edd n Eddy from a calculated, cold, and tactful sister like Gaz. Her rage isn't really blind and chaotic. It's a very matter-of-fact rage that calmly implies the fact that follow-through is completely unavoidable. She doesn't need to get physical. She doesn't need to make herself seem threatening. Her simple promise of what will happen if she doesn't get her way is usually enough to make anybody, especially Dib, comply. The real fact of the matter with a character like Gaz is that people are more intimidated by someone who stays completely calm while threatening them rather than someone who's screaming and trying to be intimidating. The extremely calm and collected demeanor implies a degree of full control, which oftentimes comes with the ability to carry out said threat without any hesitation and with a high level of precision. The thing is, she knows exactly when and where to apply this psychological pressure and when to channel it into a physical intervention. On top of that, she's the kind of person who almost doesn't even need to study her target for more than a few moments before she's found specific vulnerabilities to target. In the case of Dib, though, that's her brother. She studied him probably more than she's studied anybody else, and at this point, she's so familiar with both him and Zim that just simply walking into Zim's house, breaking her brother free, and strapping him to a stretcher to force him out of there is more or less a walk in the park for her. One key factor in this is the fact that she's very economical in her effort. Whereas Dib will beat the dead horse of preaching about how he has to stop Zim while he has the chance, Gaz, on the other hand, doesn't really repeat herself too much. She states her desire, in this case Dib being back in time to go to Bloaties Pizza Hog, and along with that comes an implied consequence because he knows from experience how extreme that she can get when he's on her bad side. With that in mind, it's pushing a kind of psychological open loop where the target thinks about the threat even when Gaz isn't actively saying it. In a way, not actively spelling out the punishment is more personal and haunting. To a degree, it's like using her reputation as a weapon. She's followed through before, and Dib knows that she'll follow through again, even if she doesn't say it. This manipulation works because it's built on years of consistent behavior. Even further than that is, again, in the sense that she's economical in effort, she's rather strategic with her passive moments. She doesn't micromanage Dib, she just plants the pressure and allows him to act from there. She tells him that he needs to be back by a specific time, and leaves it up to him to make sure that he meets that deadline, considering he knows how she's gonna act if he doesn't. Even if him not being there is out of his control. We even saw firsthand how it played out when he doesn't as well. He was forcefully dragged out and made to let his fears run rampant while he went to eat pizza. In a way, it's like her lack of effort when laying down expectations from the start makes her target feel even more trapped. Like, she knows she's getting pizza either way, so she doesn't press or sweat it too much. As far as Dib goes, she doesn't really just try to scare him into things. She understands his mental pressure points and uses minimal effort to press them. She tailors her intimidation to the person she's dealing with, knowing that her calm delivery will have them believing that she's serious. It's a certain level of power that absolutely speaks volumes when you think deeper about it. Furthermore, this one is also a showcase of her resourcefulness. She has an impressive ability to adapt instantly to problems without making a huge scene and using whatever is available to her advantage. In the case of this one, we saw things come full circle as Dib is left strapped to a stretcher that she took from Zim's ship, flown back to Earth on an escape pod that she took from Zim's ship, and forced to eat pizza while he thinks the entire world is about to perish. She didn't really have to plan this out. She didn't even really have to think too much about it. She used what she had available and her cunning wit in order to get Dib exactly where she wanted him, suffering because he didn't make it back in time. More than anything though, this is all underscored by the fact that her composure just makes her scarier and more intimidating than loud characters. She has that natural air about her where people respond with fear and compliance more often than not, and they tend to learn the hard way if they don't. As far as Gaz and the way that her brain works though, this one really did shine a few interesting lights on her as a character. First of all, it showed us just how disengaged that she is in everything that has to do with her brother. Not only because she thinks he's an idiot and that he's a paranoid freak, but also because she knows that Zim is far too incompetent to win. Dib drowns himself in this constant obsession, losing sleep and always watching over his shoulder for Zim. Meanwhile, Gaz is just truly disinterested. For her too, it's not like this comes from a place of laziness or anything like that. It's just her simply understanding that there's no use in wasting your energy fighting a threat that will never be able to win. Furthermore, this one really showed us that she's a true fitting representation of chaotic neutral alignment. Like, Gaz is the kind of person who can either be a hero or a villain depending on what her motivation is. Whether she's the hero or the villain though, she's gonna be abrasive and take what she wants. In this one, the motivation was going to Bloaties, obviously. When she learned that the prerequisite was that her brother be there, she stopped at nothing to get him back, thus playing the hero role for him. However, along the way, she would torment him and even contemplate having him experimented on while she watched. This right here definitely shows that her lawful to evil meter is certainly one that flips at the drop of a hat, and honestly, that's just another thing that adds an interesting edge to her character. It makes her way less predictable because you never know what means she's going to be willing to take in order to get what she wants. On top of all that though, one huge thing that this one showed us is that Gaz isn't one to ever really need to flaunt her abilities. That right there, in and of itself, suggests a massive confidence in her own dominant nature. She doesn't feel the need to prove herself because she knows that she doesn't have to, and that right there might just be the most chilling of all. Now, moving on from there, we're going to check out another episode that truly shows us even further just how far that Gaz is willing to go to get what she wants, and just how easily that it comes to her. It's one that really puts her best strengths on full display. We're talking about the Season 1 episode, Game Slave 2. In the beginning of this episode, we see an epic battle underway between a sword-wielding vampire hunter and a bunch of vampire pigs. The two go at it until, eventually, the vampire hunter gets overwhelmed by the sheer number of pigs as they dogpile on him. At that moment though, it's revealed that this is actually the game Vampire Piggy Hunter that Gaz is playing on her game slave. While Dib sits nearby reading a tabloid about Bigfoot and waiting for his favorite TV show, Mysterious Mysteries, to come on, we see a commercial on TV that ends up getting Gaz's full attention.
The Vampire Piggies are back! And this time they're backed by the awesome power of the Game Slave 2! Check out these actual game screens! Are you still playing your old obsolete Game Slave 1? Why? What's wrong with you? Have we offended you somehow? Huh? 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 On sale midnight tonight at all digital fun pit locations. Lines are forming now!
Gaz hops up and immediately grabs a baseball bat, heading to the door to get in line for the release of the Game Slave 2, but her dad stops her, insisting that she leave the bat behind and take her older brother for protection instead. After they sit through Dib's show, the two head off for the mall, but when they arrive, they're completely dumbfounded to see that the line is wrapped around the entire mall all the way down to the first floor.
It was a really good episode.
Hey, Dib. I think I saw a chupacabra or something going into that parking garage.
A chupacabra?
Hey, is this the line for the GS2?
Yes.
Cool!
This kid introduces himself as Iggins, telling Gaz all about how he got the Japanese Game Slave 2 a few months ago, but he has to get this version to see the new level that they added into Vampire Piggy Hunter. Much to her dismay, the hours pass while this kid just will not stop talking her ear off. Meanwhile, Dib continues to wander the parking garage looking for the chupacabra. Eventually, Gaz makes it to the counter after listening to Iggins yap non-stop for hours on end, only to find out that they are completely sold out of the Game Slave 2.
What? No! They can't all be gone! I sat through Mysterious Mysteries for this! There must be one left!
Well, someone ordered one but never picked it up. If Clarence Wong doesn't show up, it's yours.
Clarence Wong! Oh, that's me!
Higgins shoves Gaz out of the way, tossing the employee some money and skipping off with his second game slave too, leaving Gaz with none. She ends up confronting him, but he brushes her off, saying that he saw an opening and went for it, claiming that's why he's the superior gamer here. As you'd expect, this makes Gaz's blood boil. She follows him, even threatening him if he doesn't sell it to her or just simply hand it over. However, he just says that she needs help as he leaves them all, practically signing his own death certificate. Across town at Higgins' house, his mom drops him off, telling him to lock the door behind him because she's heading off to work. He mindlessly walks inside, playing his new game Slave 2. Meanwhile, back at the parking garage, Dib is still wandering aimlessly in hopes of finding a way out.
A colony of horrible rat people! Hey, do you know the way out of here?
There is no way out. We all got lost here too, and we've been here ever since.
Oh, come on. Getting lost in a parking garage did not turn you all into horrible rat people.
I was once a man.
But you're a woman.
You'll be just like us soon.
I don't think so. I think I see the exit over there. See ya!
Back at Higgins' house, the clueless little boy gets ready for bed, brushing his teeth while still playing his game Slave 2. When, all of a sudden, he sees Gaz appear in the mirror behind him between flashes of lightning. She torments him, writing in the fog on the mirror, and eventually coming in the front door with her sights set on him. Higgins ends up hiding in a closet, but he starts to panic when he realizes that his game Slave 2 is almost dead.
Batteries! Must find! No! No!
Higgins panics, running to the bathroom where he finds Gaz standing with all of the batteries in the house above the toilet, prepared to drop them in if he doesn't hand it over. He begins to plead with her, saying that he's so close to a save point. However, she really couldn't care less about what he wants.
What you need is to give the game slave to me, or I will plunge you into a nightmare world from which there is no waking. But I'm a better gamer than you. I hope you like nightmare worlds.
Higgins ends up leaving the house and running to the battery store where he frantically mashes the button on the elevator in a rush to get to the 50th floor. Unfortunately though, due to him spamming the button, the elevator malfunctions and ends up sending him up to the roof where Gaz is waiting to get her revenge. With the elevator seemingly stuck, Gaz confronts him once and for all.
You're crazy. It's mine! Mine! Alright, take it! It's yours! Just leave me alone! The rightful order has been restored.
With Gaz finally in possession of the game Slave 2, Higgins starts taunting her from the elevator as the cables holding it up break, sending him flying down below. First of all, one thing I truly love about this show, as blatantly obvious as it is just how weird that it was. Between that episode and the one before it, I'm just in awe. I really forgot how bizarre that this show can get just in its normal, subtle moments. Like, Dark Harvest was one thing. Zim harvesting organs is absolutely brutal and questionable if it's worthy of a children's network. These episodes, though, as morbid as they are at their core, the true shock comes in the weird little moments that most other shows don't emphasize all too much. Like Iggins and his general shaky nature. Or the employees at the game store and how they seemed like they were just struggling to even get a few words out. Of course, one of the best examples of this too is Gaz and her mannerisms in general. Like, when she's angry, she'll slightly twitch or clench her fists to emphasize it. Her eyes especially are the biggest tool used by the animators to get her emotions across. She keeps a general scowl, mostly seen in the eyes. Then, when she's angry, her eyes go very angular and sharp. But when she's like possessed by otherworldly powers angry, her eyes go wide like she's completely losing it. Only for brief moments though. It's the tiny moments like that which really add that extra spice to this show. Gaz is someone we're used to seeing very calm and not quite monotone, but rather flat emotionally until she elevates quicker than the bus ride to rock bottom. That elevation doesn't last for long though. She doesn't lose sight of her mission, however, she'll contain that energy until she gets her hands on her target. That's when she pops the cork and lets all that bottled up rage overflow. It ties directly into what we talked about earlier with her being so psychological in her revenge and precise in its application. In this case, it was going after batteries, not letting Iggins save his game, and giving him zero hope of being able to escape her pursuit. She knows that's where this kid's fears lie. She's listened to him. She knows his entire personality is being this gamer and getting praised for dominating the CPU that can only fight back to a certain degree. Gaz, though, isn't limited to programming. She stalks him, watching him and learning his mannerisms until she successfully predicts his next moves. We saw this come clear as day in that moment where she gets in the elevator at the battery store and she ends up being on the roof waiting for him. It's as if she predicted that he would not only go to the battery store, but also that he would mess up the elevator and end up on the roof. All of this, of course, just doubles down and possibly even triples down on the themes that we discussed from the last episode as far as her calculated and methodical nature are concerned. She is an absolute master in psychological warfare and gathering info to learn her enemy. On top of that too, one thing that really works in her favor as far as her general character goes is that there's very little hesitation in every single decision that she makes. Very rarely do we see her needing to debate whether she should or shouldn't be doing what she's doing. She's the kind of person to act with conviction and confidence in her decisions. Sure, the last episode showed us that she's capable of changing that decision in the way that she at first chose to watch Dib get experimented on, but then changed her mind when she realized that might bog down their ability to go to Bloaties Pizza Hog. Whether she changes her decision or not, you know good and well that a decision is going to be made and that there will be follow-through. Overall, it needs to be noted that while it kinda looks comedic on the surface, Gaz's obsessive drive is kind of like a superpower. She hyperfixates on what she wants and she's not willing to budge until she gets it. She'll jump through whatever hoops she has to in order to reach her end goal. As it pertains to the show, they use it to make her a usually zany driving force behind whatever plot is going on. In the case of the last episode, while Dib was trying to save the universe and stop Zim, Gaz was obsessed with just getting to Bloaties Pizza Hog no matter what. And she did. She forced Dib there as well, all the way from outer space. Then in this one, the ultimate goal was the game slave too. This one was different though. Instead of her immediately going to pursue her goal and not allowing anything to stop her, She actually waited patiently through Dib's favorite show, taking his wants into consideration before making their way to the mall to get her game slave too. That right there, in and of itself, did seem a little bit out of the norm for her, but with that being said, it also is a testament to just how badly she wanted this new gaming system. Ultimately though, seeing her end up not getting it because she was willing to show that patience was really just the biggest slap in the face. I mean, most people preach that good things come to those who wait. In this case though, Gaz just learned that when she doesn't follow her instincts, things don't go her way. Nevertheless, as we saw, she didn't let any of that stop her. She didn't let being last in line and Higgins being a lying, selfish jerk stop her from getting what was rightfully hers. All of that to say, in the sense that her obsessive drive is like a superpower, that's exactly the kind of quality that would make her unstoppable against Zim. She would be the ultimate main character to prove as a foil to all of Zim's plans. But the only problem is that she genuinely does not care enough to use her skills against him. Like, quite the contrary, once upon a time, they planned to have her help Zim conquer the world. We've already established that she absolutely hates mankind and everybody around her. Even then, that doesn't diminish the irony in the fact that she could easily make Zim into a floor mat if she wanted to. Meanwhile, her brother can barely find the means to stop Zim's half-baked plans. Furthermore, as much as her unwavering obsession is like a superpower, so is her attention to detail, specifically in her perception of others' weaknesses. It's genuinely mind-blowing the way that she can so quickly identify someone's potential flaws and soft spots. Not to mention the ways that she uses them for her leverage and utilizes them to psychologically torture whoever she has her sights on. What it really comes down to is that the obsession and hyper-awareness to weaknesses are really just ammunition for the real weapon here. Her ability to force fear upon others. Again, one thing we brought up earlier was that Gaz doesn't really need to use physical force to get her way. Sure, she may have had to use it on her equally hyperfixated brother as he loses his mind about Zim, but as it pertained to Higgins, there was no physical violence inflicted whatsoever. It was purely psychological. He ended up freaking out and handing over the game slave too over simply the fear of what she could do. His belief of what she was capable of was really what got him to comply, and that right there is just an indicator of reputation-based power. Gaz establishes her dominance, portrays herself as someone not to be messed with, and as a result, people are afraid to do her wrong, or in the case of Higgins, they end up obsessively watching over their shoulder after they've already done her wrong. As the dominoes fall, we come to realize that both of these episodes genuinely did provide such a deep look into the psyche of Gaz. Both of them capitalize on her self-centered worldview. In her eyes, the entire universe revolves around her priorities, and yet again, that's something that she doesn't question or doubt for even a second. She sees that as the law, and she sees it as completely valid. All of these skills that she possesses are strictly reserved for the things that she sees as worth applying them towards. It really just comes down to the fact that all of her interactions here have shown us that she absolutely has the ruthlessness, cunning, and resolve to be the main character, while Dib sits on the back burner being the comedic relief in the form of an overconfident and obsessive conspiracy theorist. The only thing missing for her is a personal stake in all of this. For Gaz, humanity being enslaved by aliens is neither here nor there. She really couldn't care less. As long as at this very moment in time she gets her video games and pizza, she doesn't really care about much else. It also serves to prove that if something genuinely did threaten the things that she values, or her personally, she could react hastily, and all of these skills would be put towards stopping that threat without a single hesitation. Whereas Dib is kind of craving to be the savior of the world and get all of this recognition, Gaz just really only cares about making herself happy and discarding everybody else along the way. With that being said, I think that's one of the biggest reasons why fans love Gaz as a character. She's a representation of being unapologetically yourself and not really worrying about what everyone else has going on or what they think. She's a reminder that not everybody needs to be put on a pedestal. She realizes that just because Zim came from a race of aliens bent on universal control doesn't mean that he's by default competent enough to take over the Earth. On top of that, she's also the kind of character who always wins. She's got that immovable object type of energy, and the icing on the cake is the fact that in an absolutely wild, chaotic world, she's consistently calm and sharp-witted. It's nearly impossible to catch her off guard or cause her to stumble. On top of that, for all those who are extremely tired of Dib and his constant antics, she's without a doubt the kind of character who breathes a bit of fresh air into the show. She's the collected, take no BS type of stone cold character who gets stuff done. With that being said though, the fact that she isn't the main character is what adds to her charm and makes her a hidden gem to begin with. She becomes such a massive fan favorite because so many of us are left wondering what could have been in the wake of her destruction simply as a side character. In closing, there's one final thing that I find myself pondering. That would be the way that when Gaz was angered, the world went to complete chaos. The weather outside went to immediate downpour, complete with thunder and lightning, and things just seemed so ominous. But then, when she gets her game slave too, not even an apology from Iggins, but just the actual thing that she's been obsessing over, the world goes back to normal. When she gets her way, the chaos just disappears and an almost mystical aura of calm surrounds her. This right here, to me at least, suggests some sort of cosmic power or maybe a magical ability on her behalf. I mean, we all know that she's a strong kid who has the ability to get what she wants by nearly any means necessary. But like, at the times when she ends up full-blown teleporting from one end of a building to another, or like the way she predicts things almost perfectly, it really leads you as a viewer to question if maybe she's a lot stronger than any of us ever really gave her credit for. But what do you think? Do you agree with me? Is Gaz a character who deserved more of the spotlight? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. Really quick, with all the love in the world, I have to thank my patrons and members in the true 90s Kids tier. You all are the absolute best. And I really do appreciate all of my patrons and members. Thank you all so much for everything. For all of your support and for genuinely believing in me. It really does mean more to me than words could ever say. Now, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and stick around for another nostalgic walk down memory lane. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Peace.